Thank you very much for letting the LTAP Center come in here and do a presentation. We appreciate the opportunity of presenting to you, and hopefully we can help you with some of the issues that are out there with flagging. As we look at, where's my, there we go, I guess. They got me set up here with something different. Commercial break. Well, while they're doing that, let me show you this stuff we've got over here. I've got some stuff here on this table, and one of these little manuals is a very good little pocket manual that carries around talks a lot about the information on setting up a work zone and flagger control and that type of thing there. And that's free. You can go ahead and take that. Also, pick these up at our last seminar. If you want to post these, there's about 50 of them here. That's free. Don't take all of them, but have a couple of them. They're very good to just keep people aware of what's going on. That one talks about blind spots. This one talks about your flaggers, your signs, and know your signs, things that are going on with that. And then this one talks about flagging. I don't know. The flagging. So you're more than welcome to those. Please take some of them and we'll go ahead and get this thing on its way. How's that? Where's your clock so I can tell when I have? Oh, right there. 34. Nice. Okay. All right. One of the first things that I want, yeah, but I want to go to that button.
Right there. This isn't working.
There we back up. And it's not going to play. Okay, what this first video here is a worker back east, and he made a commercial talking about giving the workers in the work zone a break. And he made this commercial, and they put it out, and 1 week after it was released, he was hit and killed in the work zone. How many of you would do that commercial if you knew you'd be dead in a week? Anybody in here do that? What's the difference between doing the commercial and not doing the commercial? Because you're going out there on that roadway and you're trying to do your job, are you not? And so that's the thing that we've got to look at. We've got to look at the safety side of this. And as I've got down here, is there a need? I think there is, and I'll show you some stuff from the Department of Transportation that I feel is really important. Where do we get information? If you were looking for information on flagging and work zone setups, where would you go? Where? Didn't hear it. LTAP. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody ever heard of the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices? It's huge, isn't it? When you think about that, that manual is the minimum standard. And that's something that we have to deal with as we set up work zones and as we work in these roadways. And I'll show you the range of that here in just a minute. So that's where you get your information, and then we would show how to put that information into place. This is the breakdown of accidents in work zones. If you look up in the upper left-hand corner there, you can see that it talks about work zone accidents, and it talks about 2010 or 2010. This study takes in the time from January 1, 2010 to July 31st of 2016. And I broke it down and brought up each year so you can see what there is. The thing that's really important to look at, right up here in this upper corner, 3179. That's the number of accidents that happen within that year in a work zone. Okay? Now, if we go on, we can look at the next one, was 3585. Next one's 2728. Next one's 1336. The next one's 2232. And 2843. And here we are on this year. We're just over halfway through it, and we've got 1,572 accidents in our work zones. So if it keeps on going, we're going to be another 3,000 a year, it looks like, does it not? So work zones are really important. This is the thing that's really important overall, and this has all of those years included. This is the fatalities. And if you look up in that upper right-hand corner, 72 fatalities in our work zones across the state. And each one of those little red dots is where they took place. So you can look and see if they're near you or away from you. If you look at Logan, we got one sitting up there big as all outdoors. How long ago? I mean, what's their time frame? If you look at the top figure here, July, is that June or July? June 17th, 2016, 2 months from today, or last 2 months back from today. We had a fatality in a work zone. So it is very important, and the work zones are really important for us to pay attention to. This is a work zone that I come across while I was out there, driving around and doing my job. And when I drove up on this, I looked at it. They had an advanced warning sign out, had his stop slow paddle, had his vest on. And the first thing I thought about was, how much of this is not to the standard? Can any of you pick out something that's not to the standard here? Let's get a little closer. Can he have his car that close? Can he have his lunch pail that close? Can he be standing in a traffic lane? If you look at it, here we are. His vest should be meeting the ANSI 107-2004 or 2010, which is the last edition coming out, vest. That vest was what color? Fluorescent yellow-green, was it not? Anybody know what the state of Utah has identified fluorescent yellow-green for? School zones. Anything dealing with schools. So if we get right down to the letter of the law, that flagger did not have on the proper vest. Because if you look at the next bare highlighted area down there, a minimum of that vest should have been 50% background color of fluorescent red-orange. So the vest was the wrong color. And if you go to the next one here, where's the flagger station? Flagger shall be positioned on a shoulder of the roadway in a conspicuous position facing the approaching road user. Was he facing the road user? Was he on the shoulder? He was not, and he was not, with either one of them. If you look down below, the flagger station shall be free of obstructions. The personal vehicle must be parked a minimum of 100 feet. I know that road wasn't 100 feet wide because there was only 2 traffic lanes on it. So there was another issue with it. Also talks about flagger station shall be clear of clutter, coolers, lunch bag or work bags, and lunch pails. You have your lunch pail there? He did he not? Also, flagger shall be able to move around other traffic control devices freely. What was right behind the flagger? There was a cone there, was there not? 36 inches or so? Did he trip over it? Did he try to get out of there? You bet he could. So those are all things that we could look at, and we can find areas that we need to upgrade or make better. This is the intersection. This particular job had 2 approaches and 1 key intersection involved in it. And when I drove past it, I thought, oh, that's not too bad. And then as I looked down the road, I said, where's his advanced warning sign? And here is his advanced warning sign right there. Is that doing anybody any good there? Facing the house, facing the sidewalk, not even in the traffic lane. So, there are a lot of things to look at. Here's the flagger on the other end. This is on the closed lane. So a flagger's taper should be installed here, and the flagger should be on the shoulder again. What is a flagger's taper? How long is a flagger's taper? You look in this neat little chart right here, put out by the Department of Transportation. It'll tell you that a flagger's taper for 40 miles an hour or less is 50 feet. 6 devices with a 10-foot spacing between each device. Anything over 40 miles an hour needs to be 100 feet with a 20-foot spacing. How many cones do you see out there? Don't see 6, do you? And you don't see it being stretched out for 50 feet neither. So these are all things that we need to look at and pay attention. This one does not have a retroreflective vest on. It calls for a retroreflective vest, Class 2 or Class 3. How do we know whether we got a Class 2 or Class 3 vest on or shirt? Anybody know? Look at the label. And it'll have ANSI 107, 2004, or 2010, Class 2 or Class 3. It'll come right out and tell us what we've got on and what we haven't got on. And this is the gentleman that was in charge of this sewer project. They were slip lining the sewer. And so I asked the flagger when I first come up to him, because I felt a personal responsibility, because my name was on the instructor's card, and my name was the name that got the pamphlets there, or the kits there, for those flaggers to take that course. I had to sign for those things. And at first, I didn't let it bother me. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, this really needs to be up to a standard. And I really need to talk to this guy. So I stopped and talked to him. And I told him there's some things with this flagging situation we need to take care of. You know what the first thing out of his mouth was? We don't have to obey the state regulations. How many of you heard that? How many of you have ever been asked before, this is not a state road, I don't have to supply I don't have to go to state standards. Have you ever heard that? I heard it back when I was with Logan City, when Tim's dad and I were working together at the street department. Notice the old guy in the corner way back there? That shows you how old I actually am, because he was just a young kid then. But I've heard it ever since then, and I've always had a question in my mind. Do cities and counties have to apply to the state laws? Raise your hand if you think they don't have to apply or don't have to take and follow those standards. No hands going up, so you must all believe that thing, right? So I might just as well skip the next couple of slides. So this is right from the MUTCD. See it up there on the top? Utah, 2009 edition. This is page I-1. Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Standard. What's a standard mean? Standard is a must-do, is it not? A mandatory? We don't have a choice. If it's a standard, it's like Shell. If they have Shell in here, it is mandatory. You shall do it. You don't have a choice. So if you look at this, traffic control devices shall be defined as all signs, signals, markers, and other devices used to regulate, warn, or guide traffic placed on, over, or adjacent to the street, highway, pedestrian facility, bicycle way, private roadway, open to public travel. See definition in section 1A.13. What do you think about a private road? Do we need to follow the rules there? Got one ahead, going like that. Yes, you do. And we'll go through that standard here in just a second. By authority of public agency or officials having jurisdiction, or in the case of a private roadway, authority of the private owner or the private official having jurisdiction. Part 2A, or paragraph 2A, the Uniform Manual on Traffic Control Devices, or MUTCD, is referred to Utah's Code, Title 41, Class, Chapter 6A, Section 301. And will, with the included changes made within this Utah manual, shall be recognized as the state standard for all traffic control installed on streets, highways, bicycle ways, pedestrian roadways open to the public. And again, it tells us to see that same section. So here's our section. Private roadways open to public travel. Public toll roads and roads, including any adjacent sidewalks that generally run parallel to the road. Why are you talking about sidewalks? We have to deal with sidewalks? Do they have a standard? What's the standard for sidewalks? It's the American Disabilities Act, is it not? So everything we put out there has to have the same ability for those people to move from one area to another, whether they're handicapped or not. So if we put them across the curb and gutter, we need to build a ramp that meets the standard of 8%. Okay, let's go on. Within shopping centers, airports, sports arenas, and other similar businesses and or recreation facilities that are privately owned, but where the public is allowed to travel without access restrictions. Roads within private gated properties, except for gated toll roads, where access is restricted at all times. Parking areas, driving alleys, within parking areas, private grade crossings shall not be included in this definition. So that pretty well lays it out for us, does it not? Talks also here about paragraph 2, and it talks about the supplement for it, and it virtually comes out and names the state, the city, the county level. And you can see it right down. Come on, where is it? Right there. State, city, and county levels and private roadways open to the public. So it lays it right out. It talks about here as defined in paragraph 3. Well, here's paragraph 3 right here, and it tells us the same thing. Toll roads under the jurisdiction of public agencies and authorities and public-private partnerships shall be considered to be public highways. Private roadways open to public travel shall be as defined in section 1A.13. And then parking lots, including drive aisles, within this parking area, there are either publicly or privately owned, shall not be considered to be part of open to public travel for the purpose of the MUTCD. Okay. One thing that kind of bothers me because I've got older, does everybody know about how when you get older? Some of you guys are a little older might recognize that you have a change in your eyesight, do you not? Every 13 years after you're 21, you need double the light to see the same thing you saw at 21. So when you get to be a young guy like I am, you can realize how many times that's doubled. And this bright light makes it so I don't see a lot of things defined. I get really ticked off at the highway patrolmen because they get out there and the first thing they do when they stop somebody in the middle of the night is turn their overheads on, and they turn them on high intensity. What does it say in the MUTCD about lights on aero boards and work areas? If they have a dimming effect, it should be dimmed to half of what their normal daylight brilliance would be. If they're not, they should be directed away from the flow of traffic at a perpendicular angle, or they should be running parallel to traffic as they are moving away, so it doesn't shine towards the traffic. So those are the things that we need to look at if we're working at nights. These pictures, I have to thank Logan City for those, and Jared Pratt, thank you, appreciate it, because they have helped me a bunch looking at them. So keep that in mind. This is the manual from the Department of Transportation, and this is the manual that takes us through all the flagger stuff and the flagger's information. So this is where you can find it. The introduction talks about flagging and talks about how lives depend on flagging and how equipment depends on the flagging. And it is very important that we have that out there. Talks about uniformity. This is something that took me a little while to kind of register. But if you see the golden arches, do you have any question in your mind about what's there? You don't, do you? And you instantly know it. Well, that's what they're trying to do with the manual on uniform traffic control devices. When you see a road work sign, that you know the first sign is going to tell you it's road work, second sign is going to tell you what is happening, and the third sign is going to tell you the action that you're going to have to take. And so if we all lay our work zones out that way, it makes it uniform, and people instantly know what's going to happen. It makes it a lot better for us as workers in that work zone. If we look at our reaction time, what's our reaction time? If we are driving down the road and we see something that we're required to stop for, how long does it take us to recognize that we've got to stop and for our brain to tell our foot to move from the gas to the brake pedal? Anybody got any ideas? It's 2.5 seconds. So if we move into a work zone, that changes. It doubles. It goes to 5 seconds. If that car is going 40 miles an hour, the number of feet it's going to travel is half of the speed added to the speed. So it's going to travel 60 feet in a second. If we don't react for 5 seconds, we've gone 300 feet, right? That's half a city block in Logan, and I'm sure some of your other places are very close to that. So you can see why the accident rate becomes a problem in work zones, because work zones are constantly changing, and drivers are constantly rubbernecking and watching what's going on. So it's something that we need to take and keep in account as we're working at it. Certifications, 3-year certification. Again, they have to have ID, have to be carried on them when they're on there. I'm just going to brush through these really quickly. These are the things that are qualifications for a flagger. Remember that the flagger is going to be the first person that the public's going to see on your job site. So he's a public relations person, are they not? So you want them to make a good image for you. And the protection that they need to have out there for themselves, they need to be rested up. They need to be wearing comfortable clothing or comfortable shoes, because standing on hot asphalt all day is not a lot of fun. And their clothing needs to protect them, and the sun needs to be taken care of with their sunscreen or with their clothing. Again, they have to have good nourishment, and we need to supply them with breaks. You would be surprised how many times I'm doing my heavy equipment workshops and we get talking about flagging, and I had one guy tell me that he actually stood on a job because they didn't give him a break go to the bathroom and he wet his pants because he had no other choice. Because if he left that job site, he was leaving a bunch of workers and equipment open to exposure. So we need to make sure that they're getting those breaks and stuff. We need to make sure their clothing and apparel is right. Again, talks about retroreflective, again on the vest, talking about ANSI, talks about the 50% background color, also talks about unacceptable clothing, what we can't allow them to wear out there. Here's pictures of some of it. The tools, again, your advanced warning sign, stop, slow paddle, a flag. Can we use a stop, slow paddle and a flag together? You see it happen all the time, do you not? They cannot be used together. A flag is a distraction from the stop, slow paddle. A flag is emergency situation only, and it's a red flag, not an orange one, and it's 24 by 24, not 16 by 16. So many times we see orange ones out there. So it's emergency only. Night, do we have special stuff for night? Retroreflective hat, retroreflective vest, and the flagger station has to be illuminated. So we have extra stuff happening there. And this is a picture of some of the things here that will happen in the work zone. And again, Utah's stop slow paddle is of a different standard than the MUTCD. The MUTCD standard is an 18 by 18, and Utah's is a 24 by 24. Okay, other equipment, pencil and pad, driver's information, that kind of stuff. Talks about the flagger station. We've already talked about that. Talks about the procedure the flagger should go through. It's laid out how that flagger should be doing their job. The stop, hold the paddle in the right hand, put their hand up, and they face traffic. After the first car stops, they move out the center line so that the people behind that first car can see them. When they get the message from the other end, check the work zone, move back, turn the paddle to slow and release traffic. Slow traffic with the slow sign. So there's procedure is all laid out for them. Also laid out for the flag. Virtually the same setup. This is something that UDOT's put out there that I really like because it gives you the different types of surface conditions you may have on roadways and the distances for the speeds so you may have to adjust for. And if we start looking at those conditions and a lot of the areas that we flag, that visibility issue becomes a real problem for us with trees or hills or curves or whatever it may be. So this is a real good one here. And then this is the release signal, and this is the slow down signal that we've already gone through. Emergency flag, there's the stop position, the release or the proceed position, and the alert position by moving the flag up and down. It's not waving the hand. Hand goes to the side, flag goes up and down. What do we do with pedestrians? People with disabilities and bicyclists. Already talked about the American with Disabilities Act and how you have to comply to that. Emergency vehicles, you should have a procedure for handling those or special circumstances. You have a hay swather come through there and you've got a limited width. And that hay swather is wider than it is. What are you going to do? What's that flagger supposed to tell them? So that all needs to be laid out. What kind of authority does a flagger have? Has the same authority as a police officer to control traffic. What's the difference between control and direct? Control is stop, release, and slow. Direct is telling them where to go. Only a law enforcement officer can direct traffic. So a flagger is just controlling traffic, okay? And they have to be in a work zone, and it has to be properly set up for that flagger to have that authority. Okay, we have a liability with this stuff? You bet we do. We got a real liability with it. Those are the things we're trying to keep away from with it. They have a lot of appendix. These appendix talk a lot about the same things. This is in the uniform, this is a page from the Uniform Manual of Traffic Control Devices that they've put right in that handbook. There's another page from it. Here it goes through and shows you those procedures again for the flagger, with a paddle and with a flag. Talks about the distances here, and it talks about the minimum standards set by the Federal Highway Administration, which is the MUTCD and the Utah adopted one. And it talks about traffic control zone and the 4 parts of that traffic control zone. You have warning area, you have a transition area, you have an activity area, which includes the buffer space, the work area, and the actual traffic path. And then you have the termination area where you return traffic back to its normal lane that it would be going into. They even go so far as to give you pictures to show you what it should be set up like. And this is one of those pictures here. This is talking about the signs. What does orange mean? I mean, we got red out there for stop signs, and we got yellow out there for caution signs, but what is orange? Orange is a temporary caution sign. It's out there for temporary stuff. If it is a permanent, it is yellow. And it may have the same symbol on it, but it's going to be yellow because it is permanent. There's our heights and our setbacks for them, both for portable and for stationary. Talks here about what we can use and what we can't use with different speeds. They always told me for UDOT you could not use cones. Here it tells you where you can use cones and where you can't use cones. Talks about your arrow boards. It tells you what is acceptable there and what isn't acceptable there. This is a really good chart, and it's the same chart that you have here in these drawings, the PC4A page. And this one goes a little bit further and tells you the flagger's distance and the flagger station. But this is a lot better chart, in my opinion, than what the federal people have put out. Because the federal people have put it out there as urban low speed, urban high speed, and rural and interstate and freeway expressways. What's the difference between urban and rural? Curb and gutter and sidewalk. What's the difference between urban low speed and urban high speed? Utah defines it as 30 miles an hour. Below is low, above is high. So Utah's done a lot better job with it as far as I'm concerned, because they've laid it right out. They've told you what it is and what it isn't. What we do on intersections? It's telling you right here, you've got to have a leg for every, you have a flagger for every leg of the intersection. If it's a signalized intersection, it has to be in a red flash mode. If it's not in a red flash mode, you've got to have a law enforcement officer to direct it. How many lanes of traffic can a flagger take care of? 2 through lanes and 1 turn lane at present. So you can see the one to the left side there has got 4 lanes in it. That's why it's got 2 flaggers. So that's where it lays it out, tells us what it can be and what it can't be. This is typical application 10, and they use it a lot in our training because of the sight distance. And where we're on a curve like this, they want to have it so that people can see the flagger. So you move the flagger out to where that may not be able to see the work area, but at least the people coming up to that work area can see him or see them. Okay, this is a regular street one. This one here is a haul road one. This one here is a grade crossing. And this one here is patching in the middle of the road with a pilot car. What do you have to do with a pilot car? Here is an intersection, T intersection, another T intersection, what needs to be set up on it. There's the last page telling you the flagger, safety things to remember. Job's important. Flagger must be physically and mentally strong. Clothing and tools are specified. Tools include a smile. Your position and your motions are right. You know the rules. The warning signs are proper. the flag, or the traffic slow down is safer. And they only slow down if they see a need to. I think everybody comes down the I-15 between Brigham and the, what is it, Slaterville there, where they're doing that construction, 65-mile-an-hour speed limit, and I was doing 75 just trying to keep up with people. So they don't slow down unless they see the need to. And that's something, yeah, sometimes you're going to have to put out there. One-way traffic requires special attention. When you go through these, there's a lot of places where it talks about special cases. Special cases are where you've got traffic going in two different directions in one lane. It has to be coordinated. And nighttime flagging requires extra equipment. Go through these. These are just some additional ones I put in here because I think there are some ways around some of the things that you may have to deal with. Here's one in the center of the roadway. There's the manual, and that's where you can find your information for it. I think the fastest way to find the information, again, to go to UtahLTAP.org and click on the training resources, and it brings you to this page right here, and that is your manuals and stuff right there. So that's the, if you can get on to UDOT's website and get there in one click, I would like to watch you do it because I've tried, and it just doesn't happen. So, okay, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Any questions?
Are motorcyclists really exempt?
Motorcyclists exempt? Well, only if I'm on my bike. No, they got to follow the same rules as my bicycle. And it's the bicycles are the ones that really don't follow the rules. You know that as well, bike.
Okay. Thank you, D. Hatfield. Thanks for your help there.
You're welcome.
Great presentation. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Yeah, give him a hand. Give him a hand. Thanks, everybody, for coming today. Just a couple reminders. Make sure that you put your operator numbers on the roster in your email so I can get information from us. We appreciate you coming. Thanks for your participation and partnership there. Have a great day.